We're ready to start the third section of Chapter 1, and as we stated early on in these chapter objectives, that we want to also be looking at the importance of proper nutrition and including the role that perhaps supplements might play as an ergogenic aid. And the term ergogenic aid simply means to enhance performance or an enhancer of some sort. And then we also want to look at nutritional quackery. And so that's going to be the focus of this portion of the Chapter 1 lecture. Now, as we look at sports-related fitness, we really want to look at, once again, exercise and nutrition. And the question for us is, what makes a champion? Well, Broussard and Para noted in their article, What Makes a Champion, that although genetically gifted athletes can be identified, we really have to optimize their athletic traits through proper training. And when we talk about proper training, it's important that we understand that an important variable of that is proper nutrition practices. So when we look at sports nutrition, what is sports nutrition? Well, it's a relatively new area of study. And in this area of study, we're taking the application of nutrition principles and we're using those to enhance sports performance. Now, Louise Burke defines sport nutrition as the application of eating strategies with several major objectives, which include we want to promote good health. We want to promote adaptations to training. We want to recover quickly after each training session. And we want to perform optimally during competition. So the nutrients in the foods that we eat and dietary strategies may actually influence exercise or sport performance in a variety of ways. And we see some of those ways there that it can help provide energy for our various energy systems. And we'll talk about that in Chapter 3. It may help increase muscle tissue growth. We'll talk about that in our discussion of protein. It might help bone mineral density and strength. We'll talk about that when we have our discussion on minerals. It might help enhance the energy producing metabolic pathways. Once again, a discussion for energy production, which is Chapter 3. Regulate body temperature. Well, there's a discussion for the importance of water in our diet. So there's a variety of things that we can do through nutrition and a variety of strategies that we can take that can really influence our sport performance. The question we always want to ask, are the athletes today receiving adequate nutrition? Well, dietary surveys are bringing back quite mixed results here. Some studies show that athletes are eating as well or better than non-athletes, while other studies actually reveal that there are some inadequate intakes. So there's a lot of variability in some of the research out there. When we look at which athletes are more susceptible to poor nutrition, well, they tend to be female athletes. And they are much more likely than males to incur inadequate intakes. Many times related to eating disorders, many times related to the female athletic triad. And we can't discount males in this. When we look at weight control sports, we also have to pull in wrestling as a class of athlete that many times are not receiving adequate nutrition. So how does nutrition affect athletic performance? Well, as we review the roles of nutrients in future chapters, it's going to be plainly obvious to us that they play a huge role in performance. A well-planned diet will help to optimize our performance, but a poor diet can actually lead to impaired performance. So there's two ends of this spectrum here. And both of them are about malnutrition. Too often we think malnutrition is simply we don't have enough food. Mal, the prefix mal just means poor or bad. So that word specifically defined to us simply means bad nutrition or poor nutrition. So on either end of the spectrum, we might have undernutrition, or on the other end, we may have overnutrition. So we have those that consume too little, and we have those that consume too much. We have an unbalanced nutrition pattern. So if we are worried about this athletic population, then what can they do to optimize their sport performance? Well, Melinda Minori, who is an expert in sport nutrition, has been noted as saying that there's no doubt that the type, amount, composition, and timing of food intake can dramatically affect your exercise performance. But that's dependent on a variety of factors. Things like our gender, our age, our body weight status, what our patterns are, climate conditions, and the type of sport that we're in or the type of training we're undergoing. When we look at the expert viewpoints, they really run the gamut here. We have those that believe that supplements are needed, to those that say we have no needs for supplements. And still yet we have those experts in between that compromise between those two extremes and suggest that supplements should be used under certain situations. This is when we get into this discussion of ergogenic aids and sport performance. Now, these type of aids have been around forever, and they basically function as a means to improve beyond what genetics and training can supply us. So what is an ergogenic aid? Well, it basically is defined as a means to increase the potential for work output. And we can have performance-enhancing techniques like hypnosis, or we can have a performance-enhancing substance like creatine. Now, the techniques here, we talked about hypnosis, but we also have an ice bath. A lot of you listening right now, perhaps if it's a fall class, you just had an ice bath after volleyball practice or football practice. That's an ergogenic technique. We talk about substances. Creatine, very commonly used, but it can range all the way to steroids. When we look at this word itself, the term ergogenic is derived from the Greek words ergo, which means work, and gen, which means production of. So basically to increase our production of work. Now, we have a variety of different classes of ergogenic aids, and you can read from your text for these definitions on page 20. Why are these nutritional ergogenics so popular? Well, because the use of drugs is illegal, bottom line. And so what has become very popular are dietary supplements. In fact, they are the most commonly used ergogenic aid. And they're very popular. You know, people out there believe in these magical properties of some of these supplements, that if I take it, I'm automatically going to be better. We have them being recommended to us by coaches or by fellow athletes who are using them. And we are using very, very shrewd advertising and marketing techniques. You know, how about this for shrewd advertising? Pawn Stars Stacker 2. I mean, most of you probably are watching on the History Channel Pawn Stars right now. Well, they're actually endorsing and promoting their own dietary supplement as an ergogenic aid. We see the same thing with Gatorade. And I'm not discounting that some of these are not beneficial. Certainly as a certified athletic trainer, I understand the benefit of Gatorade as a supplement used in hydration. But many of these other ones, they're probably more magic and smoke and mirrors than they are really going to work. And that leads us to the next question. Are nutritional ergogenics effective? Well, research suggests a few are, but most aren't. And the key here is that this nutritional supplementation above our current RDA, which is our recommended daily allowance, is usually not necessary for the vast majority of athletes. In general, the consumption of specific nutrients above the RDA has not been shown to exert any ergogenic effect on the human physiology or athletic performance. However, there's going to be some exceptions to these. And we're going to talk about some of those in future chapters. Another question is, are they safe? Most over-the-counter dietary supplements are safe if we take them as directed. But that's where we run into the biggest problem. And with that problem, I'm talking about this old cliche that if one is good, then 10 has to be better. And that creates a situation where an athlete can actually overdose. The FDA has even noted that some sport supplements contain chemicals that have been linked to a numerous amount of serious illnesses and even death. And secondly, the product label may not even contain all the ingredients. or may contain ingredients that they don't even list. And that becomes the problem that we run into with the safety feature with some of these nutritional ergogenics. Are they legal? Well, the use of pharmaceutical agents to enhance performance in sport has been prohibited by governing bodies for most of the organized sports. And the use of drugs in sport is known as doping. Now, at the present time, all of our essential nutrients are not classified as drugs, and they're considered to be legal for use in conjunction with athletic competition. Some dietary supplements are prohibited, like Andro, because they've been classified as an anabolic steroid. Others, like Fedra, are prohibited because they fall into the class of a stimulant drug. So ergogenic aids, been around forever. Supplements, dietary supplements, most commonly used class in these ergogenic aids that we see. And unfortunately for many of us, we're spending a lot of money. We're taking in excess. We're not really getting the benefit that we think we're getting. And we're just washing the excess amount out in the sewer system. Now let's take a little bit of time to talk about nutritional quackery, because this really relates to some of these dietary supplements. And when we talk about quackery, what we're basically telling you is that many of these products that advertise extravagant claims really have no legitimate basis. And we can regard them then as simple quackery. You say, well, what in the world does that word mean? Well, quackery is a term that we use today that refers to not only a fake practitioner, but also to the worthless product and the deceitful promotion of that product. Now, these are big business. We're looking at about $25 billion a year that are spent on questionable health practices in the U.S. alone. And a substantial percentage of that is spent on unnecessary nutritional products. You know, as a population, we're taking a greater responsibility for our own health. But with that is going to come the countless opportunities for those people out there to take advantage of that. And they take advantage of it by promoting nutritional misinformation, by promoting health fraud, and we basically then allow this quackery to flourish. So we have to be educated practitioners. We have to know what we're buying, and we have to understand the science behind it. Now the question we run into then, why is quackery so prevalent in athletics? Well, many times the athlete is hoping for something to provide them with a slight competitive edge. And they even fear losing if they haven't done everything possible to win. Now, there's really 4 factors within the athletic environment that help nurture those type of hopes and those type of beliefs. First of all, the eating behaviors of the star athletes. You know, when an athlete attributes their success to a sports supplement, people stand up and take notice. You know, for example, when Mark McGwire revealed that he used Andro as a supplement when he broke the home run record. When he did that, the sales of Andro skyrocketed. Secondly, many coaches suggest to their athletes that certain foods or supplements can improve their performance. And so you take that advice from the coach, from these people that you respect, from these people that you want to please. And you'll consume those. You'll buy those. Thirdly, we find so much misinformation abounding in these sport magazines and sport books. You got to be very careful about that. You want to look at the research behind that. You want to look at who's promoting that. If it's the company that's selling it, guess what? They're making money. That means that their opinions are biased many times. And then we also find out that perhaps of all these, the most significant is the direct advertising of nutritional products marketed specifically for that athlete. It's for that population alone. You know, a recent survey, they looked at 5 different magazines. There was over 800 performance-enhancing products being promoted in those 5 magazines. So this is big business. And so now the question to you is, how do I educate myself, and how do I recognize that if nutritional quackery is being promoted in this product that I'm looking about? Well, sometimes it's really difficult to tell the difference between quackery and what is sound nutritional information. But there's a series of questions that you can look at that's going to help you evaluate the claims that are made for those supplements. And first and foremost, does it promise really quick improvements in health or sports? Does it contain some magic formula that they're not willing to share? Is it being promoted by these popular personalities or sports stars because they're making money to do this? Does it take a single truth and just exaggerate it about that ingredient? In fact, does it really call the entire medical establishment and scientific community? Does it question their integrity by saying that they're wrong? And I think big, does the person or magazine who recommends it, are they also selling it? Because they're making money at it again. They're biased. And I think the bottom line is it too good to be true? If it is, it probably, if you think it's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. So we ask those questions, but we also want to know, well, where can I get information to combat quackery? Well, we want to be able to do some good quality research on our own. We want to look at scientific books. We want to look at some government and professional consumer groups, some of their websites. I think always that you want to look at that suffix on a website URL. .gov, edu, org, those tend to suggest credibility. Use a lot of caution when you have that COM site. That's usually a site where they're trying to promote selling of that product. You want to be able to look at scientific journals and some of the popular magazines even. And we have great consulting groups out there. The American Dietetic Association has a great website, eatright.org. We have SCAN, which is our certified specialist in sport medicines, sport nutrition. And here's a really cool website for you to look at, www.supplementwatch.com. Now realize it's a .com, but it really can give you some pretty cool information. Well, with that, we have concluded the content information for Chapter 1. And I just want to remind you that as you learned in the first chapter, you are required to utilize that URL and do your family history background. And there's an assignment posted in this module. You're also required to do the reflection assignment on pages 29 through 31 of your text. And don't forget about the quiz. And we'll see you in Chapter 2.